Hi everyone, and welcome back to Temp Talk. We're so happy that you could join us again. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you being a part of our community. This month is just going to be me again. Hopefully Sissy will be able to join us next month. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Temp Talk is an opportunity for us, the cast and crew, the Temporary Legend owners, to talk to you and answer your questions. Just talk about everything Temporary Legend and what we have coming up. So if you have questions that you would like to submit to us, comment down below on this video, or you can comment and leave questions for us on our Instagram. You can follow us at Temporary Legend Studios on Instagram. And you can also leave comments or questions on our TikTok, at Temporary Legend on TikTok. So, without further ado, Zelda, what are some of the questions that people left for us from last month?
All right, so we have, why is your company named Temporary Legend?
Oh, wow, what a great question. So, the company is called Temporary Legend. Our studio is called Temporary Legend because when I was in college, I originally wanted it to be called Awkward Turtle, which, like, saying it now and thinking back on it is kind of cringy, but a friend of mine at the time, we were kind of talking about it and I was kicking it around, and he was like, well, what if it was like something that was more dramatic, like Temporary Legend? And I was like, oh, that's cold, I like that. And thus Temporary Legend was born, and many years later now here we are. What's next?
What are some of your goals for Temporary Legend?
So originally, when I thought of Temporary Legend way back when I was like in undergraduate, like fresh out of high school, I really just wanted it to be like, it was more like a Banksy kind of thing at first, of like, oh, my artist's name or alias is Temporary Legend and I'm going to make art and release it under that alias. But my name is already kind of unique, so I was like, I don't need to do that. And so when I got older and got to the point where I can make it a reality, at that point I met Sissy and we were talking about some of the things we want to do. And it's important for us to not only make art now that we can have ownership of and that we can have a lot of creative freedom over versus a lot of the other stuff that we do in our professional lives. We also want to get to the point where we can empower other artists to make artist-owned content. So artist-owned content is a long-term goal for us at Temporary Legend. It's something we really care about. And I think that both of us really think, like, hopefully at some point in the future, we can be a destination for people to come and tell their stories. But for right now, we're telling stories that we both are really inspired by, and we're continuing to grow, and hopefully we'll reach the point where we can help other people tell their stories.
When did you first play a tabletop game, and what inspired you to make Realms and Roleplay?
I first played a tabletop game so when I think of tabletop game, the first thing that comes to mind is like board games. And I've played those my whole life since I was a kid. My family, we had game nights all the time, and on the holidays we'd all play board games. There'd be a lot of cheating, but it was always a lot of great fun. And Realms and Roleplay, I think, like, I always had an interest in acting and telling stories collaboratively with a group of people. And I wasn't really into D&D just because fantasy is not really something that I like too much, because I never really saw characters who looked like me in fantasy. I was one of those people who never really liked Lord of the Rings. I know. But it was because when I was a kid and I watched it, I was like, dang, why is everybody white? And like, some of y'all might be like, oh, okay, but to a non-white person, like, that's weird. It's weird. It's weird when everybody's white. Like, for y'all, for those of you who are white people, think about it like this. When you watch a movie and everybody's black, do you feel kind of left out? Right? Like, it's weird. And so that was how I felt about Lord of the Rings and a lot of fantasy stuff, so I never really got into it. But that's not to say that you can't have, like, stuff about your culture or whatever. but I just think that I felt like it was something that felt like it was made up, and it was like, why are you excluding people if it's made up? But then as I got older, I learned about stuff like Critical Role and Dimension 20, and I saw other people like creating in this space and making something new out of these systems that have been around for so long. So I was like, dang, I can do that. And that's kind of how it started, yeah.
Speaking of Critical Role and D20, next question is, have you ever watched any one-shots campaigns from D20 and Critical Role? If so, what are your favorites?
Oh man, I'm so slow with Critical Role. I am watching it all. I've seen a bunch of it. I think the very first like tabletop actual play I ever saw was a live show of Critical Role in Austin. And I didn't really know too much about it. I was like super behind, but I saw that they were going to be there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go. So I got tickets, and y'all, like, it was the most, like, I go to a lot of like plays and concerts and stuff, but it was nothing like this. Like, the lights went out and everybody started singing the theme song and chanting in unison, and the energy in the room was just so incredible. And I was like, wow, like, this is next level. I didn't know that like stage performance could be something like this, and it was so intoxicating and enthralling, and it's exciting. And then I saw a Dimension 20 live show at RTX in Austin, and that kind of taught me that like D&D and like those actual play shows, those stories can be something outside of traditional fantasy. Because at the time, I think they were doing Fantasy High for Dimension 20, and it was so interesting to see like this John Hughes kind of story with this like high school setting, but with these characters who are heroes in this fantasy world. So I'm a big fan of both those shows. I've seen a lot of their stuff, and I think that like they are a big inspiration for what we do at Realms of Roleplay.
What are some of your favorite hobbies?
Oh man, I love to play video games. I think video games and comic books are probably the two biggest things. I have a lot though, but we'll just stop there for now. But yeah, I'm always reading comics, always playing games, and yeah, I think those are probably the things. I can go on about that forever, but what's next?
What inspired you to start telling stories of your own?
When I was a kid, we had to do like a school report, and I remember it was the first time that I was in school, and the teacher was like, it can be whatever you want. And I was like, anything I want? And a lot of people were like, oh man, like that's so hard. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh, it could be anything. And so I made this story, I think it was like called like it was something silly, like Captain Starship and the Planet Grub Grub or something like that. And it was about this space captain who goes to this planet with these little green blob people on the planet Grub Grub, and they all like hang out and they have to solve mysteries. And it was just a little silly kid stuff, but it was so much fun. And I think from that moment on, I wanted to figure out ways that I could tell other stories like that, because I really enjoyed like not only writing it, but like when other people read it, I enjoyed their reaction to it. Of like, oh wow, I made this thing and people have an emotional reaction to this. I wasn't putting that together as a kid of like, oh, they had an emotional reaction, but looking back on it now, I think that's what it was for me, of like, oh cool, like the same feeling that people get from performing on stage. It's like, I'm telling this story and it means something to someone else. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other moments that sparked, but I think that was probably the very first time.
Last one. Will there be more seasons of Realms and Roleplay?
Oh my gosh, of course. There's going to be so many more seasons of Realms and Roleplay. We're going strong. I think that like for us, I think we'll probably just keep making them until we run out of stories to tell. We're really fortunate that there's a lot of awesome people in our cast, and we all love playing together. So we're bringing in new friends, and we're trying new systems, new RPG systems, and hopefully you like them. We have more to come soon about what those are going to be. Thank you so much for coming to hang out for Temp Talk for a little bit. If you want to leave a question for us to answer at next month's Temp Talk, so we do these once a month, and you can leave a question on this video or on the snippet of it where it's posted on different socials. Leave a comment, and let us know what your question is, and we'll answer it at next month's Temp Talk. Again, you can follow us here on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us grow, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, we're at Temporary Legend Studio on Instagram. We're also on TikTok at Temporary Legend. And we are so thankful that you're here. Thank you for being a part of our community. And we'll see you in the next one, everybody. Bye.